Morning. Tonight we look at widespread damage across North Florida and South Georgia.
And we take a look at how President Biden plans to respond to this disaster, as well as his continued efforts in Maui after the deadly wildfires in Lahaina.
Plus, an interesting sight over western U.S. What we're looking at, actually, in the night sky.
WBRC Fox 6 News. First Alert Weather Extra starts now.
Welcome into Weather Extra. Chief Meteorologist Wes Wyatt.
Tania Michelle.
Meteorologist Tania Michelle. Meteorologist Lauren Linehan here. And we've just all been in awe today. Something about these I-named storms. Here we go with another storm with major impacts.
Yeah, see, like earlier this morning, we were tracking Hurricane Idalia as it made landfall as a Category 3. And then later this afternoon, it became a Category 1 and now a tropical storm. So gradual weakening of this storm, and we're still paying attention to it until it moves out of the eastern portions of the United States.
And I know one area we've been watching, South Georgia. And Lauren, this is home. That's home for you.
Yeah, it has been very hard to watch. I mean, I didn't get much sleep last night, calling my mom, constantly checking on her. She did just text me and tell me she just got power back.
Wow.
Which I'm impressed, because a lot of the emergency management down there has been saying, hey, prepare to be without power for a few days. They say it looks like a war zone down there. If you've never been to Valdosta, it's the last stop in Georgia before you get to Florida. I always say it's the last stop before Disney World in Georgia, because you take I-75 straight down, and it is a city that is full of pine trees. It was actually declared as Tree City USA. It got that designation. And so if you think about all those thin little pine trees clustered everywhere, you got a lot of rain coming in that saturates the ground. It's not going to take much wind to knock those over.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of like that when you go down into North Florida. If you ever take that track across I-10 from Tallahassee over towards Lake City, it's just nothing but pine trees, it seems like.
Right, yeah, South Georgia and North Florida, they're about the same thing. So,
well, the Panhandle has really felt the brunt of not just one, but with Michael, and now just to the east, here we go with Idalia. And I know there's certainly going to be a lot of cleanup happening, but what an amazing report there that they're already getting the power on in some areas. Let's take you right now to the latest on this tropical system, and this is now a tropical storm. The wind speeds have backed off to 70 miles per hour. As for us, we're on the back side of this, so we're kind of on the drier side. We've had a couple of spotty showers across East Alabama. Notice here, watch Charleston right there. I was seeing earlier there were a couple of tornado warning polygons I was seeing in some of the earlier imagery. You see that popping up there just north. There's been several tornado warnings. Looks like around Wilmington there also some tornado warnings popping up. But here's the new data, the advisory that we have, and you can see that it shows the system moving offshore after midnight and then moving to the east. And it looks as though it's going to be moving towards Bermuda, so that area will be on alert as the system makes a turn. Yesterday we were thinking, wait a minute, could this actually make a turn back towards Florida? But now we're seeing more data that looks like the flow is going to finally pick this thing up and take it out into the Atlantic Ocean. Look at all the power outages, though. I know we were talking about around the Valdosta area, some power being restored, but still thousands of customers stretching from the west coast of Florida south to Tampa all the way through the Carolinas right now, dealing with some massive power outages there from all the wind and all the downed trees across that region. Flow is out of the north for us. We've got this north wind that is really going to help out with comfort levels tonight. There were a couple of showers you can see right there moved south across Clay County. There's another right around Spring Hill. Wet weather's been very, very spotty. So after 8 o'clock tonight, most of those little isolated showers to the east, those are going to dissipate, and we'll have clearing. We got a bright full moon out there tonight. Breezy, a little bit cooler tomorrow morning. We'll see some upper 50s early in the day. Dry for tomorrow, but storms come back on Friday. We do have a first alert for scattered thunderstorms making a return. Here's a look at the hourly forecast, and you look at this, by 8 o'clock it shows 70s, but I tell you what, places like Coleman, we're going to be in the 60s there by 9, 10 o'clock in a lot of areas, so those temperatures will be tumbling quite a bit. Well, Hurricane Idalia made landfall at Keaton Beach in Florida's Big Bend this morning around 7:45 a.m. as a Category 3 hurricane. It actually strengthened right there close to a 4, and then it dropped to a 3 there. It left the Sunshine State feeling its wrath. Ivan Rodriguez has the latest from Crystal River.
Idalia unleashing fury on Florida Wednesday morning, making landfall as a dangerous Category 3 storm near Keaton Beach.
This is a very, very powerful storm. there will be impacts far beyond the eye wall.
Inflicting catastrophic winds and life-threatening storm surge not seen in this region for more than a century.
This storm is worse than we've ever seen. My family has been here for many generations. We haven't seen a storm this bad ever.
With wind and weather affecting so much of the state, storm surges flooding into Fort Myers homes being rebuilt from last year's Hurricane Ian destruction. Rising waters turning streets across the state into rivers. Authorities warning people to remain vigilant even after the storm passes.
Our message now is stay where you are until you hear the all clear from local officials. We don't need you out on the roads. There's still so many hazards after the winds and rains have cleared that we need to make sure our residents and visitors are aware of.
Idalia is quickly tracking across Florida and the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, where people are urged to beware of flooding, strong winds, and possible tornadoes.
Its way up the East Coast, South Carolina is bracing for impact. From batteries to flashlights and even anchors to make things secure, Westbury Hardware Store in Berkeley has all the essentials. The store also saying people are stocking up on propane and even filling up sandbags. The director of emergency management for Berkeley County saying that further inland counties can also experience their fair share of impacts.
The biggest thing that we're going to see is this is going to bring a lot of rain. We're going to see a lot of rain, and what the Weather Service and a lot of other agencies are forecasting is anywhere from 4 to 8 inches.
And the county says they will have the staff at their emergency operations center monitoring the storm. Lauren?
Well, Tania, over in our home state of Georgia, it continues to be hit hard by Idalia tonight. Governor Brian Kemp made a statement on the powerful hurricane earlier today.
There's been a heavy impact in South Georgia with heavy rainfall and heavy winds. I know most of the people across the state of Georgia will not feel the impact of the storm, but for those that were in the line of the storm, it is very hard hitting, and we're certainly watching that as it continues to move through the state.
Schools are canceled across southern and eastern parts of the Peach State, and a curfew is in place as the storm pushes through this evening. And this storm in particular, as we mentioned earlier, hits close to home for me, literally, as you can see in this video out of Valdosta, Georgia. This is Lowndes County, Georgia, and I mentioned how this has been designated as a Tree City USA. Look at these trees that have been coming down, these thin pine trees. There are so many of them there. It doesn't take much to knock them down, and you can see it got inundated with water. The flood water across Valdosta actually resulted in a flash flood emergency today, where water rescues were ongoing several hours ago. But now we are beginning to see, I'm getting texts in from friends and family. They're assessing the damage. Fortunately, I know a lot of you were asking about my mom. I was so concerned about her, but she's good. She just got power back on. But a lot of other family and friends are now having to deal with getting trees removed off of their homes and cars. So let's kind of take an in-depth analysis about why this was so tough in Valdosta. We've talked about how in the Florida Big Bend, in the Appalachee Bay, there has never been a recorded hurricane on record to move through this area, which it actually was a Category 4 at one point before it made landfall. But what we've been noticing as we look across areas like the Florida Big Bend as it went up into southern Georgia is that it didn't have much time to weaken. Valdosta is only about 80 miles from the coast, and so you just don't have a lot of time for it to weaken because the system was moving fairly quickly. What you'll notice as Idalia does begin to move inland, offshore it still had a well-defined eye wall, but it actually went through what is called an eye wall replacement cycle, and so it can briefly weaken in situations like that. And once the system moves over land, it's going to weaken anyway because you lose that warm fuel from the water, and that helps to really ingest like lighter fluid into these systems and cause them to sometimes be very strong. So the eye wall was still intact over the Gulf, but as it moves northward into South Georgia, you begin to get just a remnant of the eye wall. And that northern eye wall, as it came in, is what caused the big problems in Lowndes County, Georgia, which is where Valdosta is. So it came in as a Category 2 hurricane. I was talking with friends and family, and they can say the one that they remember that could kind of be paramount paramount to this was Hurricane Kate back in the 80s. So I asked my mom this afternoon, how would you compare this to Kate? Because that's the story she always uses to compare others to. She said this one was way worse. So you can see that northern eye wall made a direct hit over Valdosta. And the eye wall is where you're going to get the strongest winds. We had hurricane force winds recorded at the Valdosta airport. And also you've got a lot of water associated with the system. It's a tropical system. So if we look at how much rain fell, this actually lines up right with our forecasts and with the National Hurricane Center, showing that there was going to be this swath of rain where the eye wall and the remnant of it moved inland. And you can see an estimated 6 to 7 inches from North Florida around Perry up towards Valdosta. Tallahassee, which was fortunately on the western side of the eye wall, didn't get hit as badly, but still a good 5 to 6 inches of rain. And you can see as Idalia has been continuing to move up the coast, if we look closer to areas south of Augusta, west of Savannah, already 8 inches of rain has been recorded, and Idalia is now a tropical storm. But we know with tropical systems like we've seen here in Alabama, you can certainly get the potential for tropical systems to dump a lot of rainfall outside of just a wind threat, Nia. So certainly thankful my family is okay, and I thank everyone here for checking in on them as well. But Idalia has certainly meant business. And again, these infamous I-named storms.
Yeah, Lauren, listen, I'm so happy that your mom, your family and friends are alive and well. And yes, there is a lot of cleanup happening across many places in Florida and also South Georgia as this storm continues to track north and east. And as we move farther up the East Coast, even though New Jersey will miss a direct hit from both Hurricane Franklin and Idalia, they will still have some indirect impacts. Rough surf and dangerous rip currents in the southeast could potentially worsen coastal flooding up in the mid-Atlantic, especially if occurring during the high tide. New Jersey also has a chance for blustery winds and heavy rain. Well, coming up and still ahead on First Alert Weather Extra, once in a blue moon comes to life. Hear about your best chances to see this larger than life celestial event and when it will return.
We have more on what is now Tropical Storm Idalia. And once we get Idalia out of the way, a lot of us focus on that Labor Day weekend forecast, plus how we're cleaning up our oceans. We'll be right back.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome into Good Day, Alabama.
A new morning comes with preparing right, because while you slept, news broke.
We have new information from that breaking news that happened this morning.
While you head out, the storm we gave you the first alert for is on its way in. And as the key turns the ignition, your shorter route to work is being found.
Avoid 459 southbound completely because of a crash.
A new morning means everything you need for a good day is on Good Day Alabama, always on your side.
The First Alert traffic you need to get you there safe and on time. Tomorrow morning, everything you need for a good day is on Good Day Alabama.
You're late, out the door, and on the go. Don't worry.
Good Day, Alabama continues all morning long.
And wherever you watch, this is what you need to know right now.
More reporters on the streets with more hours of news when you need it. Everything you need for a good day is on Good Day Alabama. Knowing first is everything. First Alert Weather.
Welcome back to First Alert Weather Extra. I'm meteorologist Lauren Linehan. Today, hundreds of trucks packed with supplies headed to Alabama. Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery is serving as a staging area for first responders and FEMA. Base leaders say it's an ideal spot for recovery efforts because it's right off the interstate. Right now, around 80 trailers are on the base stocked with water, food, tarps, and generators. More trucks are expected to move in. Also, around 40 Navy helicopters are ready to respond and rescue hurricane victims if needed. It's another way our state is stepping in to help our neighbors in need.
It's fantastic for us to be able to support this kind of thing. This is the kind of thing that when you join the military, you're here to perform a mission, right? And protecting Americans and doing what we can to help. It just always makes you feel good to be able to do that.
Helicopters from the Naval Air Station in Jacksonville, Florida are also in Alabama right now. They evacuated ahead of the storm to prevent any damage. Tania.
Well, Lauren, President Biden providing an update on how the federal government is responding to Hurricane Idalia. This comes after the government is already contending with recovery efforts following the deadly Maui wildfires. Fox News correspondent Alexis McAdams, has more details.
It's moved over land and is now shifted to Category 1, but it is still very dangerous.
President Biden addressing the federal government's response to the destruction expected from Hurricane Idalia, pledging to provide Florida and the rest of the Southeast with any resources it needs, even after the storm has passed. Sending up to 1,500 FEMA personnel to that hurricane zone right away.
I let each governor I spoke with know if there's anything the states need right now, I'm ready to mobilize that support.
Idalia delivering a back-to-back blow to the federal government, already stretched thin as it continues to support long-term recovery efforts in Maui, where deadly wildfires caused massive devastation and left more than 100 people dead. President Biden also promising millions of dollars more to help rebuilding efforts there.
I'm announcing that $95 million from the bipartisan infrastructure law is on the way to Hawaii to harden the ground power, harden the grid.
The president scheduled a meeting with his cabinet to coordinate how the government plans to deal with the two costly disasters. The head of the Federal Emergency Management Agency confirming its Natural Disaster Relief Fund needs a boost. Now calling on Congress to approve additional spending while prioritizing the money FEMA has left for Idalia and the Maui wildfires.
I directed my personnel to implement what we call immediate needs funding. And if we have another storm, we're going to have to closely monitor what impact that's going to have and any other actions we might have to take.
FEMA plans to request an additional $12 billion more from lawmakers to get through this fiscal year. Reporting in New York, I'm Alexis McAdams, Fox News.
Experts are becoming increasingly concerned about the disappearance of fireflies from the U.S. and other countries. Firefly Conservation and Research, quote unquote, says they're unsure why fireflies are vanishing, but scientists have two theories. Since fireflies live in marshes, fields, and forests, the development of forested and waterfront property could be potentially destroying their habitats. Another factor could be light pollution, which makes it difficult for fireflies to communicate with one another. And experts warn fireflies could eventually vanish altogether if the current trend continues. Oh, I love fireflies. Lauren?
Thanks, Tania. I certainly love seeing them on Red Mountain this time of the year. It makes coming back up the mountain worth it. Well, if your Labor Day plans include a lake day, this warning is for you. State troopers with Idalia tell us they're noticing people are staying out on the water much later than usual due to warmer weather. Trooper FREDDIE Ingram says people have a tendency to not turn their boat lights on. So make sure your lights work if you're going to be out on the water late in the day. He also says stay hydrated with the right fluids.
But you find yourself not consuming enough water. If you consume alcohol, you have a tendency to dehydrate even faster. So take the time, make yourself drink water, make yourself stay hydrated, because it'll help you in the long run, especially when you get ready to leave. You'll be more alert and be able to get back safely.
And as we know all too well, it's not unusual for storms to pop up during the summertime. If you're stuck in a storm and can't get back to dry land quickly, Ingram says look for a temporary shelter or head to the nearest dock. Wes?
All right, with clouds gradually clearing out tonight, don't forget to look up. You may be able to catch a glimpse of the super moon, and also it's a blue moon. It's the second full moon of the month. It should look brighter because we call it a super moon as it's closer to the Earth at perigee than at other times this year. The moon will be full until Friday morning, but won't be as close after tonight. If you're wondering how rare it is, just think of the expression once in a blue moon. The next one won't be in sight until 2037. Wow. Yeah, I mean, let me tell you, this would be a great opportunity maybe to enjoy a sweet treat tonight. You know, once in a blue moon. Reward yourself on this evening. It looks as though the moon's also having an effect on the tide, and with the storm surge along the East Coast being at this perigee, that's another interesting factor. But we're going to be talking a lot more about what's going on with the tropical system, also updates on our 7-day forecast as we continue right here on First Alert Weather Extra. But as we go to break, here's a look at today's First Alert Weather Almanac.
We heard the first alert. Mom says we have to go. She says I don't have time to grab any more toys.
Need to be in your tornado-safe place. Get there right now as you have.
We have to get to our safe place because sometimes when you hear the siren, it's too late. That's why she says knowing first is everything.
We know weather can be grab the umbrella or jogging shoes, but it's so much more. It's a science, an art, led by knowledge and experience.
And no one has more of that than a WBRC First Alert weather team.
Warning you first with more hours committed to you. And the first forecast built to see weeks, days, and even minutes ahead, right down to where you live. From the team you trust on your favorite screen.
Doing the weather better. The WBRC First Alert weather team always on your side.
The first alert is more than a warning. It's a promise. A promise to get you out of harm's way with plenty of time to spare. 4 walls and a roof can be replaced. Lives can't. That's why knowing first is everything. First Alert Weather.
All right, welcome back into Weather Extra as we check out what's happening with the hurricane and now tropical storm Idalia is impacting Charleston, and still some heavy rainfall. We've seen tornado warnings with this as it moves across South Carolina. It looks like after midnight it is going to move offshore and continue moving in an east direction. It's going to move away from the East Coast. At one point it looked like it may try to turn back to the west, but that system is going to continue moving to the east. Live look from Lamar County. That's Vadian and Credit Union there. We've got a very pleasant evening here. Notice we're down to 82 in Hamilton and Haleyville, 81 in Coleman, down to 80 in Center. Temperatures are going to tumble nicely because the air's drier with that north flow that's been in place throughout the day. It's really ushered in some lower dew points, some much drier air, and it's going to feel incredible out there later on this evening. We'll have overnight lows tonight, low 60s, some upper 50s. There will certainly be a taste of fall in the air early tomorrow morning. By 10 o'clock, you can see a lot of 60s there on the map, and look at tomorrow morning, 59, Aniana, close to 59, not a place like Rainbow City and Altoona, even Birmingham showing 63 degrees. 3 o'clock tomorrow, you can see those readings in the 80s, lots of sunshine out there, and it looks like Friday, what's going to happen is as the hurricane passed to the east of us, it's left a plume of moisture in its wake. So what's going to happen is that moisture is going to start to retrograde, kind of like what we call an inverted trough. It's going to be drifting back to the west direction, and that's going to bring us scattered showers and the possibility of thunderstorms on Friday. So it's going to be moving east to west there during the day on Friday. You check the First Alert Weather app. We're going to be tracking that wet weather that moves across the state. You can see around Jasper, and that's showing Fayette. It's not an all-day washout, but a good chance for storms. Risk for severe storms is on the low side, but we could have some intense lightning producers as this moves to the west direction. But the 7-day forecast, you can see the rain chances on Friday, and after that, well, we trend drier going into the weekend. Maybe a couple leftover showers Saturday. I still think we're in fine shape for the Alabama game there in West Alabama. Looks good for Auburn. And by the way, UAB, Samford, both games there tomorrow night. Looks like some great weather conditions you can see in a Monday for Labor Day. Highs around 92 degrees, sunshine. Looks like dry weather into the middle of next week. So that's our First Alert 7-day forecast. We're going to be talking more about the tropics and also updated kickoff forecast as we continue later this evening. We'll have updates, and don't forget the First Alert Weather app. We are streaming on the weather app, by the way. You can download that for free.
Yeah, Wes, and I also want you guys to check this out because a meteoroid that turned night to day, massive ocean cleanups, and goats saving the day one piece of vegetation at a time. Okay, Jeremy Roth brings us today's Take a Look at This.
Watch a massive meteor light up the night sky as it burns up over the western United States. The huge fireball was caught on camera and shared with the American Meteorological Society by residents in Colorado, Nebraska, New Mexico, Wyoming, and Utah. NASA's Meteor Watch estimated the fireball was traveling at roughly 41,000 miles per hour as it ripped across the sky, illuminating the darkness. They also received reports of loud booms and shaking in the areas, likely caused by shock waves from the astonishing atmospheric event. This next video is equal parts impressive and depressing. It shows a record 25,000 pounds of trash being pulled from the Pacific Ocean. The effort being led by nonprofit The Ocean Cleanup is the biggest yet, targeting the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, the world's largest accumulation of ocean plastic located between California and Hawaii and estimated to be double the size of Texas. The organization has set an ambitious goal of removing 90% of floating ocean plastic by the year 2040. Finally, a hard-working herd of goats got a special thank you for their cleanup efforts with a big day out in Chicago. The herd was celebrating a successful recent effort to clear multiple acres of overgrown vegetation near area power lines, a job they've been doing for utility company ComEd annually since 2019. The field-clearing herd got a field trip to the big city, hanging with grateful residents and visiting all the go-to places Chi-Town has to offer. For Take a Look at This, I'm Jeremy Roth.
Goats in the big city.
Yeah!
Anyway, so on that note, we come to an end on Weather Extra. We're so fortunate the weather has been good for us here in central Alabama, Tania, but you know, we're certainly thinking of folks in Florida and Georgia and in the Carolinas now, even though Idalia is a tropical storm. Man,
still those winds, lots of rain, flooding still possible. So we'll continue to monitor that. And we actually have crews right here in Birmingham that went out there to help bring supplies and rescue for areas that dealt with all the devastation from this storm. So
I was talking with one of my good friends in Valdosta, and she said, you know, it's awful. The devastation is terrible, but she's just so heartwarmed because seeing the community come together.
I know, that's the one thing.
It is, and that's just, you see that resilience with so many communities, and we certainly are no stranger to severe weather here in Alabama. So certainly keeping everyone in our thoughts and prayers, but Labor Day weekend will be upon us soon, so make sure you check back in with Chief Meteorologist Wes Wyatt tonight for an update on that forecast. And Tania, Weather Extra will be on TV soon, right?
I know, September the 11th, counting down the days.
It's gonna be here before we know it. In the meantime, we hope you have a happy and safe Wednesday evening. Good night.